I did want to make sure all of you knew that Congresswoman Karen Bass has introduced a congressional resolution recognizing May as National Foster Care Month. Now, people might ask, what is this, and I will, what's the significance of this resolution? Why is this important, and particularly to the black community, Congresswoman Bass?
Well, it's very important because, unfortunately, the majority of children removed from home and living their life in foster care are African American and Latino. And I think it's very important that our community understand the significance of the problem and also recognize that this is a problem that is solvable, and that's the good news. And so I'm very excited that today we're going to have over 40 children on the Capitol. They're actually not quite children. They're either in their late teens or early 20s who will be shadowing members of Congress for the morning. And then in the afternoon, they'll be having a debrief with some administration officials at the White House. So it's a very significant day on Capitol Hill, and we mark that by the resolution.
Well, now, when you say that the problem is solvable, how, in what way, how?
Well, over the last 10 years, we have learned so much about child development, brain development, the reasons why children are in foster care, and I have found this to be a very bipartisan issue. And, I'm so glad you have me on because it's rarely reported when Democrats and Republicans actually come together to do some good, and this is one issue where that's the case. The number one reason why children are removed from home is neglect, not physical abuse. And the primary reason for the neglect is substance abuse, poverty, or mental health issues. And if you address those issues, a lot of times you can keep the family together and prevent the child from ever being removed from home.
So it sounds to me then it's not just about the child being placed in an appropriate foster care home, but it sounds to me it's twofold. You're looking at trying to heal the parent as well as finding a decent place for the child.
And that is one of the big differences over the last 10 years. Now, let me tell you one of the problems that needs to be solved is the way the system is financed. So, believe it or not, there is a disincentive to keep the family together because the only way to access resources for that child is to take them out of the home.
Now, this is good. I'm glad you brought this up because, this reminds me of years ago. Remember when the man couldn't be around the house?
Yes.
If the woman wanted some form of social service, and they would send inspectors. Now I know I'm showing my age, but you remember if you found a tie in a house, you could a mother could lose funding,
or if the mother had anything that was viewed as extravagant, like a toaster.
Like a toaster. That's right. That's absolutely right. Like a toaster. Then that's exactly right. So this is what you mean by disincentive.
Exactly. And so the way the system is financed is that we can give the child help if we take the child away from the parent. And so what we're working on is a change of that system. Now what is happening is individual states or counties can apply for a waiver so that they are able to use the funding more flexibly. And when that has happened, you find people become very creative. They find ways of either not removing the child or removing the child for short term and assisting the family. And so there's a lot of positive examples around the country, and that's why I believe it's solvable. And the fact that it's a bipartisan issue, as a matter of fact, when President Obama was at Morehouse University giving the commencement address, he referenced one of the graduates as being a former foster child. So I think that there is a lot of goodwill on every level of government, and so I'm very optimistic that we can get this done in the next few years.
Now, I take it in your optimism, you don't see any problem with this resolution being passed. It appears that you've got that in the bag.
Well, yes, I believe we do. However, with one caveat, sometimes the Republicans don't want resolutions like this. It's not specific to this resolution, but sometimes they don't want resolutions at all.
Why?
And so if for some reason, I'm not really sure, they decided a couple of years ago that they wouldn't do these type of resolutions like honoring a particular month or a disease or an issue, but sometimes they let it go through. So we'll see. I know that there won't be problems to the substance of this resolution, and that's what's most important. The other thing that's most important is that Democrats and Republicans are all coming together to take these youth under their wing today. And this can be a life-changing experience, actually more so for the congressperson than the young person. We did this last year, and my colleagues became quite emotional when they were able to spend a few hours with these young people and had an opportunity to hear their story.
It humanizes them, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely, because, the majority of us are parents, and we take a moment and think, what would happen, and the idea of a child not having a loving family is very, hard to fathom. Some of these children have been moved 10, 15, 20 times in different homes. The other part of the system that we really need to work on is when the children become 18, we cut off all support. And in many instances, these kids are literally put on the street, and they're subject to incarceration, early pregnancy, being recruited into sex trafficking. So we have to look at the system overall and our responsibility as a government.
When you were Assembly Speaker in California, that's right, you extended support for foster youth to the age of 21.
Exactly. And what we were doing was we were implementing federal legislation. And so I am working with my colleagues that actually wrote the federal law that allowed us to do that in Sacramento. So a number of states around the country have extended care until the age of 21. It's not consistent around the country, and the level of support is also not consistent.
I remember working with foster care children, and when you pointed out, like when they turn 18, they're literally put in the street. We used to have Christmas parties for them. And so and it was like, well, what do you get an 18-year-old? And
right.
I never will forget, the lady said, you get cooking utensils.
Right.
You get things that they need to set up a home, because they don't have the things that children who turn 18 or leave home have, like a supportive family. These folks literally have nothing.
Right, and hopefully they have somewhere to put those pots.
That's right, and then have some place to live. Right.
Right. Within a few months, a large percentage of them wind up homeless. And in inner cities, that makes the young folks really vulnerable for gang involvement. And this new phenomena of sex trafficking of girls from the foster care system is something that we're witnessing right now. And some of them are recruited as young as 12 years old. And I just can't get my head around that.
I can't either. Now, let me ask you, is there do you know what the estimate number of children in foster care is in the United States?
Sure. Any given year, around 400,000 children are in the foster care system.
400,000. Wow.
400,000, and as many as 1/3 of those can be African American. And our percentage in the population is nowhere near 30%. So you're talking about almost double. And so this is really a terrible situation, and one that our community needs to pay particular attention to.
All right. And what would you ask that this audience does? I mean, it's a very activist-oriented audience. So what would you ask that they do?
Well, one thing is that it would be wonderful for people to go to our website and begin to communicate with us, and that's fostercare.com. .org. You can go to my website and find out how to link on to the Foster Care Caucus website. One of the things that we're doing this year is that we're asking people around the country to participate in a new vision of what the child welfare system looks like. And so many of your listeners, I have no doubt, are touched by this system in one way or another. And so we want people to participate in helping us create a new vision for the system. Because you know me, as an activist, whether I'm in Congress or not, I always believe that the best policy is written by people who are directly involved, are impacted by the issue. And so when we do reach the point of introducing legislation, we're going to need hundreds of thousands of people around the country to pressure Congress to make sure that the legislation gets taken up, passed, and signed by the president.
All right, and
so Karen Bass,
yeah.
They can go to my website, just Congresswoman Karen Bass. They can Google it and find my website.
All right, Congresswoman Karen Bass, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks for having me on, as always.
All right, good luck now.